Good morning. Welcome. Mike Kinman, our rector, is out of town this weekend, so it is my pleasure to welcome you to All Saints Church. My name is Christine Hartman. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve on the vestry. Also serve as chair of the Children, Youth, and Families Committee, otherwise known as CYF. That may be an acronym that you hear around a lot. That's what it means, CYF, Children, Youth, and Families. And so also, hello to everyone streaming this morning. Let's turn around and give them a big All Saints wave and welcome. Thank you for joining us. A few logistics before we get started. Coffee and tea right over here. We've also got restrooms through this door over here on my left. And then we've got exits back here and over here. I feel like a flight attendant, right there. And if you're new to All Saints and would like to get connected, please fill out the green contact sheets. We've got one at the action table over here by the door, and there's also a welcome table on the lawn where you can pick up a red welcome bag that will tell you more about this community. We put our faith into action every Sunday, and this week there is a water project in the desert that we want our assembly people to be aware of, and we want them to have oversight of, because this is a very important desert water issue. Our action table is right over here. Please visit it if you haven't already. Now, another thing is your generosity allows all of our, not just our children, youth, and families programs, but all of the programs here at All Saints to continue as we work to build an amazing future together. So thank you for your pledges. If you haven't pledged already, as Mike always says, it's never too late. So you're welcome to do that. And if you're live streaming, there is a donate button right there. Feel free to click away on that. So, and now to get us started on our session, I'd like to welcome up an individual who's a member of our vestry, an active member of our youth program, as well as a CYF committee member, Rory Loudermilk.
Hi everyone, good morning. So my name is Rory, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And today is Youth Sunday at All Saints, which is amazing, and it's one of the many ways that our community likes to celebrate the youth, its community, and lift up the voices of young people. So I've been coming to All Saints since I was in the womb. So I definitely qualify as one of the youth, and it's been an amazing experience, with acolyting and youth group and everything. So I've really gotten to know the community and really be enveloped in its warmth and everything. And so this morning, we're going to be looking forward to having a conversation about our whole lives, or OWL, and it's a comprehensible sexual health curriculum that is being brought to All Saints beginning this fall. So we recognize that this topic can bring up a lot of emotions, and so I want you all to notice that we will have some of our lay counseling ministry over here on this side, right over there. So if you need to talk to them after this session, know that that will be there for your support. And so our speakers this morning are Kimberly Berry and her daughter, Hannah. And then we have Ruth Esseln and her daughter, Emilia. And they will be joined a little later by our special guest, Ella Baker. So don't worry, we will have a lot of time for Q&A. So please soak up all this information, and let's welcome to the stage, or they're already here, but Kimberly, Hannah, Ruth, and Emilia.
Thank you. Oh. Check, check. All right, here we are. So good morning, everyone, and thank you, Haley. Yes? Hallie. Rory, darn. I tried and I got it wrong, sorry. Okay, so I'm Kimberly Berry, and I wanted to talk to you today about what is Our Whole Lives. Our Whole Lives, or OWL, is a series of 6 comprehensive curricula starting as early as kindergarten and continuing through all stages of adulthood, so no one in this room is left out. OWL is published by the Unitarian Universalist Association and the United Church of Christ Justice and Witness Ministries. Publication was the result of 7 years of collaborative effort by the two faiths to prepare material which addresses sexuality throughout the lifespan in age-appropriate ways. What is OWL? The OWL program operates under the idea that well-informed youth, young adults, and adults make better, healthier decisions about sexuality than those without complete information. OWL strives to be unbiased and teaches about heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual, and transgender sexual health. In addition to information on sex, OWL is intended to help children, youth, and adults be emotionally healthy and responsible in terms of their sexuality. The program gives clear messages about the key sexuality issues of self-worth, sexual health, responsibility, and justice and inclusivity. Okay, so a little more about Our Whole Lives. The values embedded in Our Whole Lives, oh yes, okay, while Our Whole Lives curriculum is secular, it is not values-free. The program gives clear messages about the following key sexuality issues: self-worth, sexual health, responsibility, and justice and inclusivity, which I just said. OWL and faith integration. And the most important thing to note here is that it's flexible. So OWL has been designed to fit flexibly in a variety of community settings. It's been adopted by some progressive schools without the faith-based component, and it has also received positive praise from Planned Parenthood. At All Saints, we will be using the integrated faith component that is in theological alignment with the values of All Saints Church and the OWL program. Faith integration pieces are included in each age-based course offering.
Today's presentation kicks off a parish-wide conversation about OWL in light of the rollout of the classes that will begin in the 2019-2020 church year. I work at a school, and I'm used to saying school year, so I'm switching to church year. So starting in the church year of 2019-2020, All Saints will be offering OWL classes. So the OWL classes are for grades K1, that's one group, 4th and 5th graders, that's another group, and then high school. The curriculum at the high school level is broken down between 7th through 9th grade and 10th through 12th grade. We are offering a facilitator training. All Saints is going to be offering an OWL teacher training this summer for parishioners and parents and other grown-ups in the church who are interested in becoming OWL class teachers. And that training will be offered in August. And we have 4 trainers coming from across California to provide that training for people who are interested in being teachers. All right, so more about us, more about the presenters. So my name, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, my name is Ruth Esseln, and I am a mom here at All Saints. I have 2 daughters, Adelaide and Emilia, and this one's Emilia.
I'm Kimberly Berry, and my family and I have been attending All Saints for about 17 years. This is my daughter, Hannah. My husband, Jonathan, is right here, and our son, Zion, sings in the choir. He's an acolyte, and he is involved in all the youth stuff in church today. I'm here today because I love All Saints, and I love the people of All Saints, and everyone has become such a part of our lives over the past 17 years. So I'm choosing to spend my volunteer hours bringing this program to All Saints because I care. I grew up in the evangelical church and received both positive and negative messages surrounding sex, sexuality, and sexual health. In my faith community and youth program, sex was an open topic. And I had many wonderful discussions with peers and adults in the church about healthy relationships and healthy sexuality. However, due to the implicit bias of the teachings of the church, mainly that sex was only okay in monogamous marriages between culturally normed gender expressions of a man and a woman, what most of us youth in this evangelical bubble were missing was accurate information about sex, contraception, and protection against STIs. Consequently, thank you, I saw many friends with healthy relationships but who were often dealing with significant issues, including unplanned pregnancies. I know from friends who I grew up with who did not fit culturally normed gender and sexual preference binaries, and friends that struggled with domestic violence, that the evangelical church and my own faith community caused them significant harm. I support the OWL curriculum because it's a safer space for all members to explore who they are and who and what they love. As I get closer to middle age, I'm observing and learning that though we humans try to separate spheres, the public is private and the private is public, whether we like it or not. We cannot come into a space or place without bringing our whole selves, and that includes our sexual selves. often in settings like our own Anglican tradition with roots in Europe, coming out of Catholicism, and the Church of England when it split from the Pope in the 1530s, we think that our rituals and other cultural constructs, that we can leave this and other parts of ourselves behind. But in reality, we can't and we don't. And if we don't realize this, we significantly impact those around us in our homes, our neighborhoods, and our communities. So O.W.L, for me, is one piece of the puzzle in bringing our whole and healthy selves into our All Saints community from our birth or entrance into the community until we depart. That's my why.
Thank you. All right, so about 7 years ago, I sat with Hobie. I don't know if anybody remember Hobie. She had red hair, and she was the pre-Jeremy. Joby, yes. So I sat with Joby. Okay, Joanna Joby. And I sat with her, and I said, I'm going to be enrolling my child in an O.W.L class at another church. This feels really weird to me. I feel disloyal to All Saints. Can't we bring O.W.L to All Saints? And she said, that sounds great. And then she left All Saints. So all these years later, where both of my children have been dropped off at the Unitarian Church down the street, have missed choir performances because of their commitment to the O.W.L class, I'm thrilled that we are finally going to be able to bring that program so that we are not sending our children to other churches. I like keeping them here. I am an educator, and my philosophy in life, probably to an extreme, is that I believe that when a human being has to make a decision of any kind, they deserve to be fully educated about that decision before they have to make it. And I work at a high school where I see a lot of teenagers who are in situations making decisions without all the information they need, and that feels like a crime to me. So that's my viewpoint, that's my passion, and why I enrolled my children in an O.W.L class somewhere else, and in some cases even forced them to. All right, so moving on. All right, so you've heard our why. So this can be uncomfortable for people. So right now, don't talk to anybody, but just in your own head, here's the question. Since you may not know your neighbor, think in your own head one thing about sexual orientation, gender identity, sexuality, reproduction that you learned about in a less than optimal setting. And you know what I mean, right? So just in your head, I'm not trying to upset anybody, but I think it's important to, what is your why? Why are you here supporting the beginning of this program at All Saints? So just take a moment. And that will transition us to the curriculum, which will explain the topics that are covered in each one of these grade level classes. That would hopefully make it so that the students who enroll in these classes will not have that experience that you just maybe had in your head. So this is, it's me. All right, so going into the details, what topics do the courses cover? So K1, obviously, it doesn't meet for very many weeks. It's about an 8-week program. And the topics are, okay, so I'm just going to back up for just 1 second. So a really important message of the O.W.L program is that parents or caregivers, the main person in the child's life who is raising them is their primary educator. And that the O.W.L class is, the first class always includes the parents. And the parents do a really funny activity that definitely breaks the ice. But it does not exclude parents from the process. Parents are very much included in the process. You don't attend classes, but we get weekly emails explaining what was covered so that you can then try and talk to your child about what they did. So in the K1 class, they talk about educating children about birth, babies, bodies, and families. Very age appropriate. In the 4th and 5th grade class, there are more class sessions in the 4th and 5th grade class, and they cover things that gain knowledge, life principles, and skills they need to understand and express their sexuality in holistic, life-enhancing ways. This is a developmentally appropriate program and introduces topics like body image, gender and sexual identity, peer pressure, social media and the internet, which as parents, sometimes we are not totally up to speed on that topic, consent, right? Hashtag #MeToo seems very timely, and healthy relationships with sensitivity and inclusiveness. Okay, it's me. All right, so at the high school class takes the whole year, and it is an extensive curricula. And it teaches caring, compassion, respect, and judgment. Again, it's a holistic program that moves beyond the intellect to address the attitudes, values, and feelings youth have about themselves and the world. The program is comprehensive and progressive. It is inclusive and developmentally appropriate. It addresses sensitive topics that are often excluded. At the high school where I work, we teach health. We do not cover these topics. Right, there's a lot about don't smoke a cigarette, but it does not go beyond that. We're a public school, so I understand why that is. So some topics that are, this is just barely scratching the surface of the high school class. The language of sexuality, healthy relationships, puberty, bullying and bystander responsibilities, sexual orientation, body image, contraception, consent education, STIs, and yes, get up to speed people, it's no longer STDs. I learned that when I played Sex Ed Jeopardy at the end of Emilia's class. I lost. Communicating with a sexual partner, social media and the internet, sexual decision-making, redefining abstinence, pregnancy, and teen parenting. And that literally just scratches the surface of what the curriculum covers. Now it's Kim.
And there's even a book. So as Ruth mentioned, the foundation of these classes is that the idea that they are just a starting point for conversations with people that are important in the lives of children and youth. So of course, for the younger ones, this includes parents and other important adults bringing them to this class. But that can be different as the children get older. Each youth course has a parent-adult orientation, which I think Ruth alluded to with the fun ice-breaking activities. And in the high school one, it was just a really wonderful time for us to share things like I just shared, kind of why we brought our kids to the class and what experiences we wanted them to have that were different than what we had had growing up. And there's this take-home book. So this is grades 7 through 9. And I remember really the one from our son. He took the 4th, 5th grade class, actually when he was in 3rd grade. And we had this great book, and my husband was really fantastic about taking that on and having really great conversations with him. So I felt like this really empowers the parents and adults in young people's lives to discuss what's most salient and meaningful for them, because not all these topics are going to hit every kid at every point. So what's salient and meaningful for the students. So a typical class description, OWL class is about 90 minutes long. I think it might be shorter for the youth or the younger students. High school class often involves an overnight for bonding, and often the overnight trip, they buy condoms. I don't think your class did that. Did your class do that? Her class did that. She'll speak to that later. Classes should not exceed 20 students. It's recommended that each class have 3 facilitators with a diversity of gender represented and at least 1 male identifying facilitator. The exception is the K1 class, which can have 2 female identifying facilitators. Logistical basis, K1 is 8 sessions starting in January. Grades K5, 10 sessions starting January 2020. I should mention, this is optional. You get to enroll your kids. So this is not, I think we forgot to say that, but it's optional. You can enroll your child in grades K1, 4, 5, and we will also be offering the high school class, which we're gonna be offering the 7 through 9 curriculum, but we're going to be allowing our older kids who have not had this opportunity, so maybe the 10th through 12th grade-ish age, to take the class first before we educate our kids who are still with us for longer. more information on signups coming soon, and I think we have save the date flyers somewhere. We don't know where they are, but they're coming, so hopefully when you see them, you will take one. And
we're actually going to, because of time constraints, we are going to skip for a moment to Ella for a testimonial.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ella Baker. I've been a member here for about 6 years. I came out as a transgender lesbian woman last June, so it's about a year for me. Hurrah, happy Pride Month. I am so incredibly excited and grateful for the work that has gone into bringing this curriculum here, because this is the curriculum that I wish I had growing up. The messages I received from an evangelical culture and context, and a public school system that to this day does not offer comprehensive sexuality and gender education, was all negative. It was either my identity is impossible, or it is a problem that I have to fix. And I spent 30 years trying to live with that and trying to fix myself, dealt with depression and suicidal ideation, 2 failed marriages that could have saved those wonderful women a whole lot of time and money. And having the ability to articulate who you are, what that means, and how to navigate your body and your sexuality today is not something we should leave to the internet. And in the absence of courageous parents, or a church that provides that curriculum, and in the absence of a federal and state curriculum, that's where they're getting everything from. So I'm happy that this is replacing the Google search. Thank you all for your time, and I believe they're gonna carry it away even further with some questions and things like that.
Yeah, so we're starting our interviews. So thanks. Yeah. So this is my daughter, Hannah. Yay. And we're just going to talk a little bit about her and how she's connected to All Saints, and then her experience with O.W.L. So Hannah, how long have you been at All Saints?
So is this on? It's working? Great. Wonderful. I've been at All Saints for, as my mom said, about 17 years, so we've been coming here as a family ever since I was about 2 years old.
And what have you been involved in?
As a kid, I was always involved in the Sunday school and children's chapel, as well as the youth choirs, and as a middle and high schooler, I was in the youth choirs, I was an acolyte, I attended youth group, I was in the Seekers program here, and I also served on the vestry.
Awesome. You recently graduated from high school. What did you do this past year?
So I just finished my freshman year of college, actually, and my first semester I was at the American University of Paris, where I was immersing myself in another culture and language and traveling all throughout Europe, which was a wonderful experience. And then this past semester, I started my real college education at Mount Holyoke College in Massachusetts, where I'll be continuing in the fall. Yay! Yes.
Shout out.
Yes. Women's colleges.
Women's college.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And so there, I've gotten really involved in the dance program, and I'm also starting to explore my other interests of architecture, art history, film, and environmental studies.
And reflecting on your first year away from home, what do you think All Saints has given you that is staying with you during this time of transition?
Yeah, it's been so wonderful because even though I'm not on All Saints' campus as much as I've been in the past, I've really felt like I've had a supportive and inclusive community behind me at all times. And I feel like All Saints has really taught me how to be inclusive, how to stand up for social justice issues, and has really taught me that my voice is important in solving issues.
That's awesome. Okay, so now to O.W.L. What was your favorite thing about O.W.L?
I think that my favorite thing about O.W.L was probably how the facilitators treated us really well as mature and thinking individuals. The sessions were really discussion-based, which provided a really supportive environment in which we could ask questions, we could state our own opinions, as well as debate topics, and it was always just a very safe and really thought-provoking environment, which I really enjoyed. In addition, I really liked how the facilitators were really comfortable with sharing their own experiences and giving advice from their own personal lives, because that really made it feel a lot more personal.
Awesome. And what is something from O.W.L that stuck with you?
Sure, yeah. I have a couple things. The first one thing that really stuck with me was our session on contraceptive options. So this was really wonderful because I felt like it was very, we got to learn about all the different kinds of contraception. They had lots of different types for us, so they had either physical copies of them or pictures, and one of the facilitators even had an arm implant herself, so she was comfortable showing us that, and we really got to hear her personal experience with that. And so after, as a female identifying person, I felt very empowered because I felt like I had a really wonderful and deep understanding of lots of different kinds of contraception, and felt like I would be able to make the right decisions for myself in the future with that information. Something else that really stuck with me was the question box that they have. This is a really key element of the OWL classes, and it allows, at the end of every session, students completely anonymously get to write down any questions they have on a piece of paper, and then at the beginning of every session, we get to get those questions answered by the facilitators, and they look at the questions beforehand to bring in any extra materials that they may think are relevant to the questions. And so from that, I feel like we really got a lot of wonderful questions that were asked and answered that maybe people wouldn't have been comfortable asking in a discussion setting. So I thought that that was a really wonderful part of the class.
Thanks for sharing that. So finally, is there anything else you want to share?
Sure, yeah. I think something is the biggest, I saw a really big transformation in myself, I think, in how I thought about sex ed and sexual health from taking the class. I think beforehand, I was kind of wary about taking the class. I thought it was going to be maybe boring, maybe not that helpful for me, and, of course, maybe a little bit uncomfortable. But I felt afterwards that I was very wrong about that. As I said before, it was a really supportive environment, so I never really felt uncomfortable in the situations. As well as we learned through a lot of different mediums, so there were, discussions, group activities, art projects, and videos, so we were always doing new things, and it was always very interesting. As well as I feel like the OWL classes were very strong in bringing in facts and real information so that us as students were able to, form our own decisions rather than completely just being influenced by the perspectives of the facilitators. And in addition, it really taught me that having discussions is very important, so I'm very thankful for that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Hannah. I appreciate it.
All right, so I'm Ruth, and this is Emilia. Emilia just finished the 8th grade OWL class over at the Unitarian Church. So Emilia, why did you enroll in the OWL class?
I was forced. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was cajoled and threatened into taking this course.
Threatened? Not threatened.
I was threatened. I was threatened. I'm not lying to you. She's hostile.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding, I'm joking. I'm not mentioning that. Let's just say that there were some extenuating circumstances.
She wanted a cell phone.
Mom!
And she's not allowed to have a cell phone until she finishes the OWL class. And we had a long talk about things that kids take pictures with cell phones that they should not take.
Okay, you know what?
Yes.
You
anyway, all right.
So you didn't have to mention that part, all right?
So you, Emilia, were 13. She's 13. You were reticent.
14. I'm going to be 14 in 12 days, all right?
You were reticent to talk to me and Dad. You were reticent to talk to me and Dad about the OWL classes. Why is that?
I think really the reason that at first I didn't want to talk to you about it was inside my head, the only thing I was thinking was, it's my business, not theirs. It's my class, not yours. Why is it any of your business? But really it's that the things that we talked about with the facilitators, these educated adults, the things that we talked about were things that I wanted to keep to myself, that I didn't want you to probe me about. As they mentioned, we do talk about, one of the classes that stuck out to me was we talked about social media and the internet and, teenagers doing their thing online. And when Mom picked me up and she asked me what we talked about, I didn't want to tell her because I didn't want her to think, oh, they talked about this. Wow, they must be doing horrible things on the internet. I must restrict her. And I didn't want you to come to terms with that. that it was such an issue that we had to talk about it in OWL, you know?
You didn't want to scare me.
I just wanted to keep it to myself, you know? And when we learned about contraceptives, I want to talk to you about that because me and my choices about that, I don't want to think about you thinking about that. That sounds weird, but I don't want you to think about me doing that. I wanted to keep that private, you know?
Fair enough. So what was your favorite part of the OWL class?
I'm gonna be honest, it was the people. When I came in, I was terrified because, you know, you're going to this class of these teenagers, scary. You know, these strangers that you haven't met and that, you know, you're worried what kind of impression you're gonna make on them. I was scared, but after a few months, I started to really like them. And in this small group of a few teenagers and a few adults, you really become very close, especially when talking about something so sensitive. And we made friends with each other and really connected. And I think that in that sort of environment I liked it a lot.
So last question, Emilia. Is there anything you learned that would make you recommend the class to other 8th graders?
Really, the only thing I can say to that is that it's so important. It's so important that I learned about all of that. And, you know, with the internet these days, it's really easy to kind of access that information in a negative way and a positive way because there are, you know, helpful websites. But hearing that in a sort of a personalized course, I guess, with these facilitators that kind of get to know you, you just learn all these things that you really can see how they're important, you know? When we started doing actual sex ed in my science class, my teacher was talking about all this stuff, and I was like, I know that. And she kept referring to them as STDs, and in my head I was saying, the politically correct term is STIs. I felt so knowledgeable. I felt so smart and so glad, despite the threatening, that I had taken that class, that I had learned all of these important things. And while, for those 8th graders out there who might be watching on the live stream, while it may seem scary and uncomfortable at first, you really learn a lot of important things that really are gonna be super helpful. And that's all.
Thank you, Emilia. Well, okay, so, all right. So we would like to have time for questions, and we will answer them if we can. If you want to chat with a neighbor because it can be sensitive, if you want to brainstorm a question with your neighbor, you're welcome to. But if you're ready to just ask, then by all means, fire away.
Hi, Emilia, I have a question for you specifically, and thank you for your passion and your honesty. Were there boys with this group, and what was the ratio of the boys to girls?
There were, is this on? Okay, so there were boys in the class. It's, you know, both genders, and the ratio I'd say would be, the full class was about 6 girls to 3 boys. And I mean, I thought that was good, you know, seeing from both sides because, you know, female and male identifying children have different perspectives. And I think, yeah, I like that. So I hope that answers your question.
I was wanted to understand a little bit more about what's going to happen when it comes to All Saints, like, because you mentioned so it's like 25 Sundays, and maybe priority will be the older 10 through 12, because I have a daughter who's going into 8th grade. So I'm wondering about like the time commitment with choir and all that, and like kind of how it fits in.
Yeah, so the K1 and 4-5 classes will begin in January, and then they'll go through the spring, and our goal is to, when we mapped out the dates, it'll end before June. But the 8th grade now, so what's happening is that this is a pretty big rollout for the church, all these classes all at once. And eventually, the church's plan is to offer the full slate from K1, 4, 5. It's actually a 7-9 grouping and then a 10-12 grouping. And you don't want to put those age groups together because they're living very different experiences. And then there is also an adult curriculum. And I know the goal of the church is eventually to offer all of that, but that's a lot of heavy lifting to do all at once. So from the meetings we've had, we're concerned primarily with the older students, like the 10th through 12th graders, who have not had access to this curriculum. So for our rollout that next year, it's going to be the 8th grade curriculum, but for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And then the following year, we'll then break those up. So if you have an incoming 8th grader, then your child would be able to take that in the 2021 year in the 7-9 span.
And we spent a lot of time mapping out the dates with our CYF, with Nina and Jeremy. So we've taken into account all the other things that the students are doing here on campus. So it's not going to conflict with choir. It's not going to conflict with acolyting. It's not going to conflict with anything else we're running. And it's not even going to conflict with seekers either. So we already took into account just everything that's going on here so that all students can participate.
Hi. I just wandered in, so I'm really happy about this program. What I see is that this program really has an opportunity to do what I call solve problems at the front end rather than at the back end. For example, as the mother of a gay son who went through hell in high school, I just see that instead of dealing with bullying that's occurring at the end, if you're trying to teach young people at the beginning to respect everyone, that this is preventing perhaps bullying. And the same thing with abortion. You know, you teach young women and young men how to avoid unplanned pregnancies. You're not going to have to deal with abortion. So what I'm wondering is, maybe I missed it. The whole issue of sexual harassment, is that going to be part of the curriculum where you're teaching young people not to harass and you're teaching people what to do if they are harassed?
I believe that is embedded in the 7-9 curriculum and also the 10-12 curriculum. And I think it's not only just things that you shouldn't do, but the core value of making decisions for your own body. And that would be sort of the foundational piece of the conversation about sexual harassment.
And also there's some bystander training.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's the whole section on bullying and being a bystander, and they really stress, how to be a good bystander, how to be somebody who can interfere and really be supportive to people who may be harassed, as well as, telling us in ways how to treat people well and, to prevent bullying as well. So that's a very strong aspect of the OWL program, I would say.
Thank you very much for presenting this program. It's exceptionally wonderful to hear this. I actually still have an image of the playground at junior high school in San Mateo, where I had my OWL class. I actually have that image. And so this is great, and thank you all for participating. The question that I have is, I'm sure there was some process that you all went through here and the church went through looking at you didn't just take the materials from the Unitarian Church and the other church. So there was a process of review. Could you talk a little bit about how that was done and who was involved? And
Sure. So I think Ruth touched on this a little bit in her intro of her why. So we've been in conversations, I think both Ruth and I, with a lot of the CYF staff, and for gosh, since she was in 9th grade for me anyways. I don't know how long you have been. So this has been on their radar screen, and they've been looking into this for many, many years and wanting this to happen, having looked at the curriculum, understood its creation. So this has been a multi-year process. So it's already sort of passed through all those levels of this is going to integrate with our faith, this aligns with All Saints' values and all of those things. So with that, though, I feel like the finally getting it to happen was like a fast forward button. And within the last few months, we've been able to finally get a lot of the details in place to make it happen. But in terms of understanding what the curriculum is about and making sure that it aligns with our values, it's been a multi-year process.
Hi. Is this on?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, you go ahead.
Ruth and Kim, thank you for leading, and Hannah and Emilia for being candid and sharing your experiences with us. So as a mom of a son going into 7th grade, the 7 to 9 is not available next year. I think it would be useful in the info sheet to have the where can my 7th grade boy get access to this wonderful curriculum next year, because I don't want to wait a year. So if it means outsourcing to another place, unfortunately, I'd love him to be here. But if that's not possible, I'd either sort of challenge us to say, are we really sure that 7 to 9 is not possible here? And because then you're going to have the 10th to 12th folks who are kind of behind the curve again. So if we can't reconsider that decision, and if I can help facilitate, like, do we meet somewhere else? Is it a meeting space thing? Then where else can our 7th grade boys and girls go?
Yeah, some of it is going to come down to who shows up this summer to be trained. So if we offer K1, 4, 5, 7, 9, and 10, 12, we need at least 10 trained facilitators. And the commitment to the 10, 12 is pretty extensive because it's 25 sessions and you need to have 3. When you have the 3 teachers, they rotate through. So there's usually only 2 there each time. So I think that we really need to, we can't plan for something when we don't know who's actually going to be the teachers. So if we have the diversity that we need sign up for the summer, then I don't think it's an issue of space. I will say that depending on your child's maturity, it might not be the end of the world to do it in 8th grade as opposed to 7th grade, but you're the mom, so you make that decision. And I actually work with a woman who is a teacher at the Unitarian Church, and so she's substituted for Emilia a couple times in those OWL classes. And so if you don't want to delay and we aren't able to offer it here, then you pay a fee to do it at the Unitarian Church, but it's an option. And we have an excellent partnership with them. They have really helped us provide it here. Yeah.
Oh, it was a similar question, but for the 2nd, 3rd grade pocket that has no set course, is there anything available for parents to talk about with their children during that 2-year pocket? Does OWL have, like, here's for 2nd and 3rd graders at home or something?
Not that I'm aware of, but you can certainly look online.
I have one great recommendation. The OWL, they do recommend the book It's Perfectly Normal. If anyone knows that book, so that's recommended by them. It was part of the curriculum, so you could take a look at that.
Thank you, and we do have to wrap up. It's 11 o'clock, but thank you so much to our presenters. If we could hear a round of applause for them.